the symptoms that you would experience in the chronic stress reactions are going to be very similar to how you react to stress. So you cannot tell yourself, "Oh, come on, get over it, right? To stop stressing." So unfortunately, that's not how it works. But that system understands the language of action, of movement and activity. That system understands the language of a lot of high achievers actually are going through that. The higher up you go on your hierarchy.
Victoria, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here with you, Annie.
I want to talk about burnout today, which is such a popular topic, but also I personally, and I'm pretty sure so many people don't really understand what burnout means and how to identify a burnout. And I was thinking about this topic and I was thinking, like, is it when you get bored and you don't enjoy anything else in your life? Is it when you're just tired of work? What is specifically burnout and how to identify it?
What's interesting about burnout is that every person experiences it differently. So there are some commonalities that we can kind of look at and suspect. So if you're suspecting burnout, the chances are you are. So let's put it this way. But I think one common thread among all these symptoms is exhaustion. So people usually feel that they're exhausted. And it's that kind of exhaustion where you can't just take a break. You take a break and you kind of go back to whatever you were doing and you're still exhausted. You take a nap and you're still exhausted. You got your 8 hours, 10 hours sleep and you feel exhausted. The exhaustion overwhelm is pretty much a red thread across all these symptoms. But it might help to understand that burnout is kind of like a chronic stress reaction. So what happens is that we get into the stress mode and that stress never gets released. So it just keeps accumulating and accumulating. Why it's important to know is because the symptoms that you would experience in the chronic stress reactions are going to be very similar to how you react to stress. So some people, for example, they lose sleep, right? So then in the chronic stress reaction, that probably would be how you would feel that you're in the burnout when you lose sleep consistently. Some people experience changes in appetite, whether you crave for something or you lose appetite. So I'm learning yourself and your personal reactions to stress is important to understand whether you are in that burnout mode. Is that helping, Annie?
Is it more mental or is it more physical? Because when I first gave birth, now my son is 7 year old, like I was not physically, obviously I was doing a lot because I had a newborn, but it was not that I was working too much. It's just mentally, it was so tough for me that I felt like I was burned out. Could you say, like, can anyone who is not like working a typical job but doing something else, can they burn out, or is it purely when it's like just like stress from work or life?
Well, absolutely. I think that this is not just from work and it's not really mm, it's not really about passion related. So a lot of times we're saying, well, if you're not following your passion, then you will burn out. So there are definitely stories out there that people who are following their passion and still burning out. There's definitely stress from all other responsibilities and all other activities, not just work related. So as a stay-at-home mom, for example, taking care of your children, it's not like you don't have responsibilities. There is still a lot of energy that's going out, and that energy does not get replenished. When I talk about burnout, I really like to talk about two levels of dealing with burnout. And the first one is physiological. So at the end of the day, it's a physiological mechanism of a stress. Wow, what is stress? It's a very good reaction that we have. It's a very good process that we have. Stress is there to save us from life-threatening situations. So we see something that imposes danger to our life. And then we have this mechanism, all systems shut down and only mechanism of survival kicks in. So it's fight or flight response, right? That we probably heard about. If there's some danger hiding somewhere, you realize that there's a danger, then everything gets mobilized. So all the unnecessary system gets shut down, everything else gets mobilized. And you need to decide. It's a very quick decision whether you want to attack or you want to escape. And then you take action, and that's how you complete the stress cycle. It's supposed to be very short. You see the danger, you react to danger, you take action. This is it. what's happening in our day and age is that we don't have a lot of life-threatening situations, quite frankly. But the system is still there. It wants to keep us safe. So we assign that life-threatening meaning to all other things. So it could be your boss. It could be, your worries about the job. It could be worries about climate. It could be worries about political system. Whatever it is, something that keeps us on our toes. But that stress, it's very difficult to release that stress because it's outside of our control. So what are you going to do if there are wildfires in Australia? Yes, you're concerned, you're afraid, but there is not much action you can take, right? So that stress gets accumulated and becomes chronic stress. So that action never happens, and we just continue to burn and burn and burn fuel on very limited resources, and they never get replenished. So that's the physiological part of this, and
Mhm.
then we can talk about the psychological part of this. Obviously, it has implications on the psychological part. So how do we learn to switch from that fight or flight system to a rest and digest system? And that's the psychological element of that. That's the mindset shift that we can practice. And that's how we basically take control back to ourselves.
Also, if how can people identify if someone is constantly tired, for example? How can
Mm-hmm.
they know if it's a medical issue or a burnout? Because there must be some distinguishing factors. Because if, for example, they are like, I don't think I'm burned out, and they are going to the doctors when they need to actually do something else, how can they know if it's a
Mm-hmm.
medical issue or a burnout?
Well, if they feel like they need to go to the doctor, I mean, that's always a good idea, right? So just to rule things out. But when you went to the doctor and the doctor told you that everything is okay, there are no
Mm.
symptoms, there are no disease, then you have to look for other reasons. There are questionnaires out there. You can go online and you can actually look up, how do I know if I'm in burnout? Some of them are very complex and very intricate. Some of them are a little bit lighter and shorter. Most of them are free. So if you really want to, you know, kind of know for sure whether it's burnout or not, then you can do that. But there's also kind of pre-burnout things that we were talking about. If you feel unmotivated, if you feel exhausted, if you feel skeptical, if you have all those behavioral changes that we're talking about, or some of those behavioral changes that you're talking
And it
about,
doesn't go
then
away.
it
No
doesn't go
response.
away. Yes, exactly, exactly. Just it can lighten up a little, but then it continues. So that's a pretty good indication that you're probably in a burnout. I think
So,
what's important. I think. Go ahead,
yeah, no,
honey.
keep going, please.
Yeah.
What's important?
So I think when it is important is that at this point you want to look at the solutions, right? So what are the solutions? And one of the things that I really want people to understand is that, especially if you're kind of getting into this point of desperation, it's like I really cannot take one more day of that job, or I really cannot take one more day of being with that person. I really cannot take one more day of taking care of someone. So we tend to go after something that's very close, right? Oh, of course, this is a job that's the fault of the job, or that's the fault of a manager, or that's the fault of a spouse. So we're kind of looking at those external circumstances, and we tend to make those changes before we actually look inside and look what is it that is within my control that I can change before I make any dramatic changes externally.
That's actually a really good point that you raised because people who are experiencing burnout, they might be like, oh, it's my children, or it's my job, or it's my spouse. And they're like, okay, I'm just going to break up with my spouse of 20 years because he's stressing me out. When in reality, if they just did the things that could help them heal a little bit or like rest,
Right.
they might
Mm-hmm.
enjoy this time with their spouse. So from this is a really good way to, okay, let's give people tools. They identify they have a burnout and they realize they or someone in their family member, they have a burnout. What are the first steps? And give me the easiest steps. And it
Mm-hmm.
might be different for everyone, but what are the baby steps?
So stress management is definitely a very good first step. this is actually regardless of whether you're in burnout or you're not in burnout. I think it's important for all of us, for each and every person, to manage basic stress management techniques. Whether your stress became, chronic stress and burnout or not, it's very useful to have those basic foundational tools to just manage stress, just manage your physiological system. So that what is it, that fight or flight mode, that system that is responsible for our survival mechanism, is actually pre-verbal. So you cannot tell yourself, oh, come on, get over it, right? So
Yeah.
stop stressing. So unfortunately, that's not how it works. But that system understands the language of action, of movement and activity. That system understands the language of breathing, the breath work. So that system understands the language of visualizations and images. So those are stress management techniques that we hear about, and it's important for all of us to manage them. There's so many disruptions in the world. The world is going faster and faster. Something is going to happen no matter what. The uncertainty is not going to go away. So it's important to, learn how you talk to your own survival system. So breath work, breathing is very easy technique. So if you feel the anxiety is coming up, or overwhelm is coming up, or anger, frustration, I think it's a good idea to take a step back and do a simple breathing exercise. I like to do box breathing, and that's when you inhale on the count of four, you hold your breath on the count on four, you exhale on the count on four, and you hold your breath again. So you're kind of like painting the box, right? With this. And what it does is oxygenates your systems, and it sends a signal to the survival system that everything is okay. So you can relax, right? And you can actually, move into a much more manageable state of stress and digest, much more natural state for us. And from that state, you can make decisions on what to do next, and what the reasons are for your frustration, anger, anxiety, and what have you. So that's one of those.
You said something so important, which I never thought or heard somewhere, that it's a non-verbal system. Like if you're feeling something, you cannot talk to it. You have to communicate it through feelings, which is when you take a walk, just move. It's such an important piece of information that everyone, I think, should pay attention to. And that's why I needed to like stop you for a little bit because it's very
Yes.
important.
Yes, absolutely. It's like learning a new language, right? So I'm learning to talk to myself, to that system that just running uncontrollably most of the time. But once you put a little bit more awareness to that, you can learn to regulate that. So breathing is one of those action, as you mentioned, some kind of an activity. It doesn't have to be an hour and a half, workout in the gym. If you do that, fantastic. But this is not what I'm talking about. So when we were talking about the stress cycle, it has to finish with an action. If that action doesn't happen, then your system doesn't know that the stress went away. It doesn't know that the danger went away. So it could be that you clench and you relax your muscles, as easy as that. And that sends a signal to like, okay, you can calm down now. I'm safe. Thank you very
Yeah.
much for your support, my survival system. Now you can rest, right? So when I can rest with you. So that one, or visualization. So we're talking about some guided meditations, maybe just sitting down and breathing in and out through your nose, and visualizing some calm space, something where you feel serene and you feel safe. And that helps as well to communicate with that system. So this is what I call the first aid, burnout first
Yeah.
aid, which are basically stress management techniques that are
Yes.
important whether you burn out or not.
That's that burnout is literally accumulated stress, as I hear you say, and you need an outlet to release it somewhere.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
everyone is different. For example, I personally go to gym very often. I'm very consistent, but it doesn't clear my stress out. For me, it's walk in the nature, walking,
Mhm.
or like jumping up and down, or like shaking. That helps me. So, as you said, it's very important to learn how to talk to yourself and understand what you want. And so many people are just pushing it down, drinking so much coffee or eating sweets and not dealing with the stress. Is there any way they can communicate with their family members that this is what they're going through, but not to be in a victim mentality and like, look at me, poor me, and make it about all yourself? Because we
Mm-hmm.
all have life, we all have problems. You cannot make it
Yeah.
just about yourself. How can we
Mm-hmm.
communicate with others?
So it's very interesting that you're leading conversation over there. So as I said, the stress management techniques are really first aid. That's your physiological reaction that you are learning how to control your kind of impulsive physiological reaction to establish a more sustainable changes, right? There's probably, not probably for sure, there are practices that you want to include in your daily routine or weekly routine that help you to maintain that state of awareness that allows you to be in control. So, a lot of times, people in burnout feel that life is getting out of control. There's so many things, there's so many demands, there's so many obligations that are coming our ways that are very difficult to deal with, and it's overwhelming. So, I'm losing control of my life. A lot of high achievers actually are going through that. The higher up you go in your hierarchy in your corporate career, your entrepreneurial career, more and more of those obligations are coming on board, and you feel that, oh, now my life is not mine anymore. So, how do you deal with that? So, those are the changes that you want to make, and these are intentional changes. So, one of those intentional changes is you actually want to bring joy into your life. And we forget about this. We forget that our baseline is the baseline of a calmness, serene happiness, and joy. So you want to bring that back to your life, and you want to make it the priority. So a lot of times, people when they talk about burnout, they talk about self care. And a lot of times this conversation goes like, oh, go get a manicure or go get a massage. But what self care really is, self care is giving yourself permission to experience joy and actually intentionally carve out time in your life, in your day, to do just that. So, self care is activities that you perform for the only reason is to experience joy and happiness. So these are the things that are not required of you. They're not going to bring you return on investment. You do them not because somebody asked you to, not because they're useful and not because they're healthy. The only reason for these activities to be performed is because they make you happy. And you want to be very intentional about that. And it's so crucial. So every time I talk about this, people start, some people become very skeptical. It's like, what do you mean? But that's exactly what I mean. That's how we replenish our energy. So burnout, you are extending that energy outside, and that energy is not getting replenished. How do you replenish that energy? One of those practices is the practice of self care. And that means doing the activities that bring you joy and bring you happiness. And this is a very individual list, and it could be a very elaborate list of massages and cruises around the world. It could be very small steps. It could be, oh, I really want, 10 minutes of time for myself in the morning to make coffee and sit outside or tea. I make tea or matcha, what have you, whatever your routine is, right? So whatever your ritual is, it's not a routine, it's a ritual. Make ritual out of this. You make yourself this cup of coffee with love and care, and you sit outside and you drink this. And it doesn't not take the entire day, but it's intentional in a sense that I do this for me because this brings me joy and this makes me happy. So you do this, right? So you have a list of those things that you want to do that bring you joy and happiness, and you schedule them in your day, 3 a day actually. That's my recommendation. You put them on the calendar, the same way you put in the calendar your doctor appointments and your business appointments and your kids schedules and whatever you put on the calendar as non-negotiable. So this should be your non-negotiable. The side effect of this is you actually start looking inside and you start thinking about what is it that brings me joy? What is it that makes me happy? So you're recovering yourself almost. You're reclaiming yourself. So one of the exercises that I was asked to do when I was going through my burnout was put a list of 20 things you like to do for your self-care, to put together a list of 20 things that make you happy. And that was one of the most challenging exercises ever. I stopped at number 3. It took me 2 weeks to complete that list.
Wow.
because I forgot what made me happy. So that's what happens in the burnout. You extend that energy out. You're performing all those external obligations. You are kind of just following with the flow of life that you are not controlling, and you forget who you are and what you want and what brings you joy. So this is the exercise of reclaiming yourself. So I had to go back. I had to actually think about, so what is it that I liked when I was 7 years old? I know I was happy. What is it that I really liked to do when I was seven
Yeah.
years old?
Because sometimes you get so disconnected from yourself that you need to just dig deep and like go to your past
Mm-hmm.
to remember like who you were at least. And that's really important that you talked about joy because when you're like you cannot just like remove stress. You need to feel it
Mm-hmm.
something.
Mm-hmm.
You need to feel it with your joy. And I started to do that practice a while ago, changed my life. Once a week at least, I go to a new museum or a new place or a new but a unique place, not just a coffee
Mm-hmm.
shop, a unique coffee shop with
Right.
beautiful art or a very like unique museum. Because if I do like just random places, it didn't bring me joy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really, 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 really important topic that you touched to bring more joy into ourselves.
Right.
And then
Because another thing. Mm-hmm. Go
we
ahead,
can just
honey.
communicate with our family members that I'm having this moment, like I'm feeling burned out and I need more time for myself to do the things that
Mm-hmm.
bring me joy. And I'm pretty sure when they see you happier, they will be like, okay, do whatever works for you because I like seeing you happy.
This is exactly what happens. It's a miracle. I call it a miracle of self care. People around you actually see these changes. They see how much more energy you have, how much more you can give after that. And they really accommodate this because at the end of the day, we want to see each other happy. Which brings me to another topic. I know we were talking about the burnout, but there is this other kind of label that recently started to appear, and that's languishing. So languishing is a state of like I'm not really happy. I'm not like extremely unhappy, but I'm not really happy. I'm just going through the motions, right? So different days, same thing. So you're in this state of almost indifference. Um, and a lot of us just accept it. So when you're in burnout, it's a real pain. It's like I cannot take it anymore. But when you're languishing, it's kind of okay. Somebody's asking you how are you doing, and it's like I don't know. So that's and we're starting to accept that, and I don't think it's acceptable. I think we really need to raise the bar that the acceptable kind of our normal days should be the state of flourishing, right? The state of vitality and vibrancy and joy and happiness, and that's where we can realize our full potential. And a lot of it is really inside. A lot of it is really our internal mindset shift, our internal practices that we bring over the things that we can control, like self care. Maybe you cannot control the mood of your boss or whether your company is going to have layoffs or not, but you can control your own internal mindset and shift and practice and maintain your level of energy and level of gratitude and your boundaries and so on and so forth. That really makes for that more sustainable way of going through life and more aware state of going through life.
You're right. It's a mental shift. And if someone is listening to us right now, they're like, yes, it's easy to talk for you to talk about it. I don't have 10 minutes for myself. From my own experience, and you can share yours, when I prioritized something that was important for me, yes, 1 week, second week, and third week, the time appears by itself. Whatever you prioritize, even if it's 2 minutes, somehow the universe works or God, whatever you want to call it, just makes time and space for you
Mm-hmm.
because you prioritized it. What would you say to
Mm-hmm.
those people who are in the victim mentality and they're like, I cannot do that?
Yes. I do like to talk about how time is really flexible. So you make room for life, right? It's not like life makes room for you. You make room for life. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about self care. That's a very actually objection, very standard objection that people are saying, well, I don't have time to do all this that I need to do, and you want me to do something on top of that. So that's why it's really, we're talking about small steps as well. Maybe you cannot do your 90-minute massage every other day, but you can step outside on the porch and just to feel the sun on your skin and tell yourself this is intentional. I am doing this so that I want to feel happy for this 3 minutes. And this 3 minutes will actually feel like half an hour, quite frankly. So next day, and you'll gain in productivity, you'll gain in your energy, you're replenishing your energy so you can give more. So that's the cycle. And people return that back as well. So that's my invitation is to start with small steps. And
Exactly.
there's always time. That's the thing. There's always time. If you had
Yeah,
time to watch, 40 minutes of Netflix show, you did have time for self-care activity.
exactly. Yesterday I wanted to watch something, but then I was like, you know what? Like, this is exactly the amount of the podcast episode that I have to edit. Let me watch this instead. And the first 5 minutes I was really resistant, but I know myself. I know how it works. And like, in like after 7 minutes or so, I was already deep. I forgot the video that I actually wanted to watch. And you do something, it's not fun maybe in the beginning, but at the end you feel good. So you have to almost like drag yourself. One of the writers or coaches, she said like movement manifests motivation. It's not that you feel motivated
Hmm.
first, you
Hmm.
act, and somehow that motivation comes. So that's
Hmm.
so important for people to at least 2 minutes. 2 minutes, take deep breath, just feel the sun on your face.
Hmm.
Start somewhere. And I love that you're
Hmm.
giving people baby steps. And if you barely touched the topic, but we gave them how to identify burnout, how burnout feels, and then you gave them almost like a first aid kit to them, and then the joy. Not many people, not enough people talk about joy and how to bring joy into their lives. But if people want to dive more, or if they have more questions, where can people find you, and what are some other ways that you bring value to people today?
So absolutely, if you want to talk about this more, you want to learn more, I'm on LinkedIn, Victoria Mensch. You can look me up. I post my content there, the tools and the practices that we're talking about now. There is a way to reach out to me so we can further that discussion. We do have programs for individuals and mentorship programs. We also have programs, corporate programs, because the burnout is a real expense to companies. People who are unmotivated, who don't want to come to work, who feel overwhelmed. This is a real negative impact on the corporate side as well. So it's really great to work with the companies who care about the well being of their employees. And we also do retreats. So if you're interested in that to accelerate
Oh,
that journey from burnout to harmony, we do retreats as well. So look that up. You will find all that information through my LinkedIn or through my company, Silicon Valley Executive Academy.
yes, and it will be all down linked in the show notes. Before I
LinkedIn,
ask
yes.
you my last question, what is something that maybe I have not asked you, or you want to add to this conversation to make it feel more complete?
Well, I want to say that we just touched the topic of the burnout, right? So we talked about those kind of stress management techniques, and we started talking about those practices that you build into your life that make those changes sustainable. So that when you make a decision of what to change around, that's not a decision that's coming out of a despair, but a decision that's coming from a good place of awareness and conscious of what exactly you want to create, not what you want to avoid, but what you want to create. And I really want people to inspire to that. So, what is it that you want to create and build those practices kind of in service to that desire?
Yeah, so you can meet the real you and then see all the potential that all everything that you can be, and all the creativity comes out when you try to start to heal this burnout. This is my last question that I ask everyone. Leave me and the listeners with a message that can be a quote, book that inspired your movie, or simply sentence or a word. What would be your last message to us?
So that message would be that we are very powerful. There is a lot of powers inside, and we need to find the tools and the practices to really, let that power out. So that would be my message.
We are powerful, and I think burnout just takes our power away. And if people don't take anything out of this episode, please take what Victoria just talked about to bring more joy into your life and have a daily practice of joy, or whatever you want to call it. Just name it, find a name for it, and at least do, if three amazing, but start with one baby step, more joy into our lives that, as you said, is not for anyone. It's just for yourself. It's not for the Instagram. It's not for the pictures or for the children or for the money. It's just for yourself that gives you joy. And so many of us don't give ourselves permission to do something, like something like that is unproductive. And just like teach the productiveness and do something for joy. This was a really inspiring episode for me and an amazing reminder to have more moments of joy into my life, because we sometimes forget, even though we know, we keep forgetting that we have to have more joy in our life. And I really, really appreciate your time and your energy, and that you burned out, but then you found strength in that, and now you help other people to find their own power.
Thank you very much, Annie. It was a pleasure to have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much for listeners, and have an amazing day or night wherever you are, and until next time.